6 o'clock, and we're going to open the meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission. We will start with roll call. Sherry, would you please call the roll?
Chair Murphy?
Here.
Vice Chair Chesley?
Here.
Commissioner Reich-Schmidt?
Here.
Commissioner Stewart?
Here.
Okay. Brad, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
No changes.
Okay. Then we will move on to public communications. This is the time that is set aside for the public to address the Planning Commission on city business, on items other than our scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the Commission and will generally be referred to staff and/or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. Are there any people in the audience who care to address the Commission at this time? Seeing none, Sherry, is there anyone online?
No.
Okay, moving on to the consent items. We have the minutes of the regular meeting of the Planning Commission of February 18th, 2026. Is there any discussion? Then the chair would entertain a motion at this time.
I make a motion to pass the minutes from February 18th.
I second.
Roll call, please, Sherry.
Stewart?
Aye.
Reich-Schmidt?
Aye.
Murphy?
Here.
Chesley?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay, we are moving now to disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. We have two items on the agenda this evening, and we're going to address them both at this time. Jonathan?
No site visits or ex parte contacts to report.
Brad?
No, none on my end. Do I need to mention at this time recusing myself? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, none on my end.
I visited both sites and I had communication with the property manager of Ojai Olive Press next door to Ojai Mountain Farm, but nothing other than what was in the letter that was sent to all you.
Thank you. And I have previously visited both sites and have had no ex parte contacts. At this time, we'll open the public hearing for item 1. And I do have one card, but no name. So if you would like to claim your card at this time, come on up. It says,
Is this
Public-
on the Ojai Mountain Farm?
yes,
Okay.
item 2.
We need to call the item first.
Pardon?
We need to call the item first.
Staff report.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry. You get to sit down again for a minute.
He's getting a step
Okay,
today.
we'll hear from the staff on this item first.
What we're calling the item now is when we do the recusal.
Yes. So let's call for recusal before I give a presentation on the item.
Yes.
for you.
Yeah, I need to recuse myself on the issue related to the Ojai Mountain Farms. So I'll step out.
And state the reason for the recusal as a general
I
statement.
have a conflict of interest regarding Mr. Yanow.
Okay? Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, commissioners, community. My name is Lucas Seibert, Community Development Director for the City of Ojai. The item you have before you tonight is actually an item that is returning to this body This body first reviewed this item in December of last year. At that time, had comments and had sent this to the Historic Preservation Commission. The Historic Preservation Commission reviewed this item, provided some comments as it relates to revisions that were made that are before this body tonight. I would ask for the architect, I know we have a PowerPoint presentation to kind of walk through the bits and pieces that have been revised. And essentially, the revisions themselves talk about removing and reducing the oversized umbrella that was there previously as proposed, and now we're looking for more of a consistent umbrella format, which is consistent with that plaza area. The fencing material was changed really from a wood to a metal, which is also consistent with a neighboring outdoor dining facility that already has that same design, so it's looking to kind of mirror off of that as well. And then identifying the outdoor dining boundary area. So those are the three things. The one thing that wasn't at the meeting in December of last year that wasn't allowed to be discussed because it was identified as being off the table is the freezer. So I want to I know it's identified in the staff report, I just want to give some clarification and some information on that before I have Patrick come up and kind of walk through the revisions that were made as he did with the Historic Preservation Commission last year. So the freezer that you're seeing there at the site currently was reviewed and approved through a ministerial process referred to as a zone clearance. That zone clearance at this body had identified and really kind of, to a certain degree, challenged that review. We had legal take a look at that and then identify that that actual process that we went through was not an appropriate land use process. Really, the DE or conditional use permit or even something reviewed by this body is the appropriate land use process. Historically, if you look at zone clearances, the zone clearance itself was adopted during really kind of in 2004 with a fairly significant code update that took place during that time. And during that time, it progressed into 3 different ways in which to review items from a land use standpoint. At least that's the way in which it's been kind of identified to me historically here. The first is the zone clearance, which is kind of a check in one sense to the land use piece that has already taken place, or for those ministerial items that the staff can then review and then move forward with that are non-controversial. The second way in which to review items is through a director's exemption. A director's exemption or even a minor conditional use permit. Those are all land use related pieces that rise to the level of the director or staff reviewing, authorizing that review, and that review then being sent out to this body as well as city council for their review, courtesy review as well. The third way in which to do and process applications from a land use standpoint is to simply send it to this body or to the Historic Preservation Commission or even directly to City Council, depending on the merits and the project itself. So those are the three avenues that I thought and was understood that we had in terms of moving forward. The first one that I just mentioned, which is the zone clearance, is off the table. We have been doing that on others previously, and that has basically stopped. After getting legal advice on our process and procedures, we have pivoted away from that. Being that, as it's been said, the freezer itself is being identified as non-conforming, meaning that zone clearance was authorized and signed off by myself and my department in June of last year. And not only that, but there was a tree permit that was signed off by myself in May of last year as well. Both of those pieces. Now the tree permit actually follows the guidelines for the tree ordinance. The zone clearance was really the inappropriate and inexcusable process by which we went through. So I wanted to clear the air on that. I know we can have a conversation on it, but in terms of this body making recommendations or identifying a path forward for the freezer, actions cannot be taken simply because it is a non-conforming use by the way in which the land use exists today.
Did you say can be taken?
Cannot.
Cannot.
Because it is considered to be non-conforming. And I'll leave it at that for right now. What I would like to do is to move on to, and we can certainly have that Q&A piece, but I'd like to have Patrick come up and speak to the items that have been revised as a part of the outdoor dining permit piece.
Okay.
I've got a PowerPoint here I'll pull up. Give me a second.
So, thank you very much for your comments at the last hearing. We took those to heart, made changes to all the plans per your comments. One of them was you wanted to have a larger view of the entire area of where we're going to do the work. So we created this site plan showing the existing adjacent outdoor dining spaces plus our proposed area. We also added the areas of the various outdoor dining spaces. So you can have a comparison versus what we're proposing and what's existing there. Really no changes to this plan. It's really when we get into the elevations, the details, that you'll see most of the items addressed. You asked for a plan that was much clearer on the existing area that was from the previously approved CUP. The existing patio plan with the kind of temporary barriers that are define it, which also define other outdoor dining areas in the plaza, and then our proposed plan with an overlay of those two previous uses and areas and borders. We revised the plan, so now our elevations are metal, or the railings are metal to match the adjacent outdoor dining area. Rather than the larger canopy umbrella that was to cover the entire patio, now we just have standard market umbrellas which are in compliance with the guidelines. We're also, colors that are more compatible with other umbrellas that are in the plaza. And so that was really our big change. And then we also changed our outdoor furniture as well. So previously we had some colorful tables and chairs, and now we're going with much more typical seating and tables. You can see in the rendering, we also show the revisions. So you can see that the railings look quite nice. There was a concern about them being permanent. We actually designed them so they could be removed in the event that there might be an occasion in the arcade that would need it. And these are just the details showing how we would not be affecting the existing brick pavers, so those would remain. And you can see that the level of detail we've already put into the railing design and just matching the existing. And those are the revisions that we made.
Do you have questions for him?
I have one.
Yes.
Okay. So the detail just shows bolts going into the ground for the.
Yeah, underneath the existing brick pavers, there's actually a concrete slab. So the pavers, where they would go in, would be pulled up. They'd be salvaged. So at any time, they'd go back in. And then we would just attach them to the existing concrete slab so they could be just bolted. And then we have a design actually for where we'd have brick veneers that would go over that area. Because I noticed some of the other outdoor dining areas where the railings are, you can see the concrete below. And we didn't want that. We wanted it to look like it really did belong there.
Nice. Yeah, thanks.
What's what's the, in the rendering, it's really hard to tell, I mean, it's hard to see it until you get to the renderings, but on, I guess it's page, yeah, that one. So the portion of the top left rendering, there's kind of this like portion of area that's like just surrounding the tree and going back to the building, but there's no seating in it to the right-hand side there? What's what's the use of that area?
That's for potentially future seating, but that would have to come back here to get approval for that.
Okay. And then is it just in the render? You guys have some seating outside of the fence? Is that just?
That was in the rendering, but it's been removed. It will not be part of this.
Yeah, it's not in the plan. Okay. And I also, it's a little, one thing I did notice, I think the scale of your, the original one is actually
I
different.
noticed that
Okay.
earlier today.
I mean, I think that, so, but I see it's overlaid here, so that's fine. I think, I guess some questions I have, although I don't know if there's so much directly for you, but maybe just to try to discuss them is, that area that we're talking about on the side there, as well as this kind of, I guess, different question, but up for discussion about the freezer. So there's a lot, this patio's getting larger, but a big portion of that is not currently planned to be used for seating.
Yeah, I think the concept from the owner is that that's an area where kids can play while their parents are dining.
I see.
So it's
Okay.
just, it's really kind of, it's really for the kids.
I see. Okay, that's the use of it. But then also the freezer is also taking away, obviously, some square footage where seating possibly could be.
The freezer is in an area that has always been fenced in, so it's never been seating.
It looks like it kind of overlaps in your overlay, but it's maybe not so much space. So it's really it's a minimal amount of additional seating, and it's mostly this back area. I guess just the question is if we're, not to be like against making the patio larger, but if we're making the patio larger just to make sure there's like a reason,
Right.
for that enlargement to encapsulate, I guess, this tree, and grow in that way. So I think those are my only questions about that. I don't think I have any other questions about the umbrellas or the materiality or the railing. It seems more in keeping, so that seems good. I think it's just to make sure that we feel satisfied that like the enlargement of the patio, works with the area back there. This one, where's that one?
Are you going with tables for 2 or tables for 4?
There'll be a combination of 2 tops and 4 tops. So yeah, tables for 2, tables for 4. The tables for 2 could be pushed together to create a 4 top.
How many total seats do you anticipate?
Right. $28.
Okay, in the staff report, it's indicating 38, and I couldn't figure out how you were going to arrive at that. So you're saying 28.
I'll say 28 to 32, depending on how they put tables together.
Put 2 tables of 2 together, are you going to get 4 seats?
You're going to get 4 seats. But there's also the communal table in the middle.
Yes,
So potentially people could sit on the ends. They could bring some more seats over to that,
okay.
depending on how
You're-
tight they wanted to be with there. But my assumption is 28.
Okay, that table in the center is for 6, presumably?
Correct.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about this extra kind of area that doesn't have seating in it right now?
Well, I guess we can have it.
Yeah, we
Discussion
have.
later.
Okay, well, is that?
Yeah. Okay, do you have any more questions for, I don't have your name, I'm sorry.
Oh, Patrick.
Patrick?
And you show that it's off of the kind of closest rock bench, it's 4 feet. Do you have any idea how far it is off of that kind of like, I don't know, gateway structure? I don't think it's dimensioned anywhere, but I just.
It's not, we put a dimension on because that was the one that had the greatest concern.
Sure.
Is
Okay.
that when the commissioners mentioned bringing their child through that area and just wanted to make sure it was wide,
Right.
it was wide enough.
It's probably about 8 feet or something like that. Okay. And the dash line, the dash line is just sort of showing the general area, but the actual area of use is the light double line.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
correct.
Okay, we've kind of turned this around. Thank you, Patrick, for your introduction. Now we'll open it up to the public communications.
Thank you.
Yes, open it up for public comment.
Okay, do we have anybody who would like to make a comment at this time? Sherry,
think there's a-
presumably
You
still,
should have a card.
well, I
Oh,
have a
yes,
card that
that's-
says OMF patio and no name on it. Okay,
Thank you very much. Good evening. There are so many issues with this
could you give
project.
us your name, please?
Pardon me?
Could you give us your name, please?
Oh, my name is Craig Walker, and I'm a resident of Miramani.
Thank you.
There are so many issues with this project, it's hard to know where to begin. The alterations to the plaza behind 242 East Ojai Avenue, which include a walk-in freezer, large electrical panel, fence, and expanded outdoor seating area, should be reviewed as one project. CEQA doesn't allow piecemeal segmented reviews. CEQA is designed to bring clarity to the discussion, and this process has confused everyone. The bottom line, however, is that neither project has had a proper CEQA review, which is required by law. And I want to remind you that a historic resource in CEQA includes not only the building itself, but its immediate vicinity or the surroundings. And this project is definitely right in the immediate vicinity of an historic district, historic buildings, historic properties. There's also more than just historical impacts that should be studied. If you've gone down there and heard the noise from the freezer, 58 decibels continuously. I don't see any mention of that in the administrative report. The outdoor seating proposal under discussion tonight will add significantly to the overall encroachment of Ojai Mountain Farm onto the plaza. When you add it all up, it's a cumulative impact of 900 square feet, 2.5 times the size of the original CUP. The total square footage of the CUP should remain where it was originally at 360 square feet. If they want an outdoor walk-in freezer and storage area, it should come out of their CUP and not deed them additional space to take up on the plaza. The plaza is maintained by the Plaza Maintenance District, consisting of all the businesses in the surrounding area. When you give away an area of the plaza to one business or allow them to create permanent exclusive structures on the plaza, you are requiring businesses as far away as Hip Vegan to maintain a privately used area that doesn't benefit them. In fact, there was no meeting with these businesses to discuss this project before it started its journey here. Considering the previous seeding of additional plaza space and the significant impacts to the historic character, I suggest you deny the new CUP but allow them to use the current one, making sure that the CUP should keep the same boundaries as the original. There should be no blocking of pedestrian flow or sight lines towards the west end of the plaza. No 7-foot fence should block views of the historic brick building. There should be no encroachment onto the plaza behind adjacent properties. Require only individual movable tables and chairs. Use the existing metal barriers. They reflect the proper style and are movable. And just make sure that all the historic guidelines in the plaza maintenance guidelines are followed in terms of how there's a look. We're supposed to be a Spanish village theme, and would appreciate it if you would make sure it stayed that way. So, and I think finally, I just consider it a real tragedy that they weren't able to find a way to preserve that mural, which is something that people have enjoyed as children all the way from 1945 when it was painted. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would care to make a comment at this time? Sherry, still no one online?
Yes, I went ahead and allowed him. Larry.
Okay. Larry?
Hello, how are you? Hope everyone's well tonight. If Mr. Walker is correct regarding CEQA, then that should be taken into account. If he is incorrect, then obviously you can ignore that. But regarding historic maintenance in Spanish Village, that should be taken into account. But more importantly, the freezer. The freezer's there, it was given, it was provided, it was signed off, that's that's on. However, there is no reason why it shouldn't be made to look like the rest of the plaza. Red brick, mortar mix, wood, whatever. Make it so that it blends in to the facility, the property it's next to, the wall. Make it look like it's part of the facility, that it's always been there, not that it's a metal box surrounded by a wood stockade fence, or however nice it is. It doesn't matter if it's surrounded. It should look exactly like the building. That way, when people look at it, it looks like it's part of the, I call it the arcade, the plaza, whatever you want to call it. It should not look like it doesn't belong, because that's part of the historical, that's part of the ambience, it's part of the Spanish architecture, it's part of the reason why people come to Ojai, the Spanish revival, whatever. It shouldn't look like the back of a strip shopping center with a metal box, with a metal vent coming out of the roof. That can be taken care of. It can all be taken care of by architects, by inventive scenario creators, scenery creators. We have enough scenery people here from LA. They can make it look like it's part of the facility. It's not that difficult. The rest of the fencing and all that, he wants to expand his business. You get an extra chairs. If that works, fine. That I'm not more concerned about. I'm more concerned about the metal box looking like it doesn't belong there. Because now the next person who wants a freezer or a shed, it doesn't have to look like it belongs either. So everything should look like it's part of the scenario. If that's the visual that we're trying to create. All right, we want people to come and look at the arcade like it's all one parcel, one piece. And thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, we will close the public comments at this time and turn it over to
Wait, Bill Miley just raising his hand.
you have another one?
There we go.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just heard Craig Walker talk about the sound level coming from the freezer, 58 decibels. The ambient sound level in that area, I'm sure, is less than that. And it's occasional, people talking, people laughing. If you have a piece of machinery that is constantly producing a level of sound beyond what is normal for that area, it can be very annoying and disturbing. And that issue in Ojai should be of real concern to the commission. We are basically a quiet community. We try to be quiet. And this level, I would suggest, would automatically mean it should not exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Is there anyone else? Sherry?
No.
Okay, thank you. Then at this time, we will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for discussion.
Can I just respond to the CEQA piece? Because
Yes, we would like to bring that up first.
Thank you. So California environmental quality law has two paths. The first path is when staff looks at a project, we look at whether or not it fits into the category of it being exempt, meaning it doesn't fit into the CEQA box. It doesn't get evaluated from CEQA. Instead, you look at it from the standpoint of what exemptions exist or categorical exemptions exist within the body of law of CEQA that you can apply. Here, we've identified three categorical exemptions that apply to this as it exists with the expansion, as a pre-existing use. Going into the box of it being either a negative declaration, a mitigated negative declaration, or even a full-blown EIR with overriding considerations, if it fits here, it never makes it over to this area, if that makes sense. All right, so in terms of it being a part of CEQA, it's not. We've identified it as being exempt from CEQA. Not that it needs to go through the full-blown EIR or MND. Not true in this case.
Could you tell us why it was considered exempt?
Yes, so if you look at the staff report, and more specifically, even the resolution, it identifies it as a minor alteration to an existing public or private facility. Clearly fits within that categorical exemption. That's the first one. If it fits into that one, then these other ones are just an addition to. Let me give you an example where there could be an argument for us going through it and it fitting into the CEQA box. If you're modifying the facade of a historic building. Absolutely, it fits into that. We're looking at that from it fitting into that box. And we start asking questions that are beyond the scope of what staff can respond to. So we start looking at experts. We start reaching out to historic architectural historians that put together a historic resources report that then drill down how we evaluate it moving forward. Does it still fit into the CEQA exemption box? Maybe not. Maybe there's something that needs to be reviewed and clarified and mitigated to a certain degree. But to assume that the item itself is an EIR is incorrect. The way in which you evaluate this is you first look at it from the standpoint of it being exempt, outside of the box of CEQA, still identified as a CEQA classification or discussion, but outside the realm of it going into a negative declaration or a mitigated declaration, negative declaration, or even an EIR with overriding considerations. So I just want to, I keep hearing that it's an EIR. We immediately go into an EIR. Not true. You instead look at it from the standpoint of it either fits into a CEQA exempt box or it fits into the other three categories I just identified.
Do you have questions about that, Jonathan?
Good for you. So if there is something about the project that it's normally exempt, but because it's a historic structure, and this is an area right outside the historic structure, you could take it out of the exempt status because of the very nature of it being historic, and if there's considerations, at hand, you can bump it out of that status because
there would have to be
historic.
something that identifies it as being significant.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Any kind of significance. So it is possible to say this is a significant impact to this historic structure. I mean, one could argue that.
If we're talking about the freezer, that's potential. However, the freezer is not a part of this application that we're taking forward. Is it an informational piece that's been identified within the staff report? Is it identified as it's being a non-conforming use? Yes. Is it something that this body can consider tonight? No. That makes sense.
Okay. So Okay, I have so many, I feel sorry for the applicant, actually, because I think there were so many things that went wrong with this project. One being, and I've said this over and over, but I think that we have an ordinance, and it's not CEQA related, but it is related to piecemealing. And it is section 10-2, 1802. You can look it up. And what it is an ordinance that says if you have multiple permit applications, the applications have to go. So if you have a tree permit, a CUP, a D, and something that might be a director's exemption, whatever, a combination of permits, one might be able to go to the director, but if there's multiple permits, they have to, all those things have to go to the planning commission. They have to go to the highest permitting authority. If it's a tentative map in there, it goes to city council. But all these things should have been brought together as one to the planning commission. The tree permit, I know you did a zoning ordinance, a zoning clearance, but if that would be a CUP, and it would have gone with this amendment to the CUP. So I'm seeing it as, this is a CUP, and it's outdoor dining. It's a new business coming in. We're gonna look at the tree permit, we're gonna look at the freezer, we're gonna look at the outdoor dining expansion. That's how I see it, that's how it's been done in the past here. So this is really frustrating. And the other thing is, where is Public Works in all this? The encroachment, did the applicant know that they have to do an encroachment permit, a dining permit? I mentioned that at the last meeting, and I'm just floored that this isn't happening. So I feel bad for the applicant, and as far as this outdoor dining, I think the umbrellas are fine. They're great. You listen to us, and I appreciate that. I think the chairs are fine. No problem with that. I think the fencing is actually fine. I think I prefer the movable panels in this area because, one, you're asking to encroach into the neighboring space. It's public plaza, but it's right in front of the neighboring building. And what if they want to come in and do an outdoor dining permit? I think, it's fine to let these guys go in. They're the first in. They want to have outdoor dining. I think that's excellent. We all love sitting outside, under the oaks. So I'm okay with that, but the panel allows for, we could condition it if the other tenant wanted to, our building owner or whoever, business wanted to come in, we could say, okay, Mountain Farm, you have to move over now. Ojai Olive Oil wants to use their outdoor dining. You can do that with movable panels. So that's not a deal ender for me, the fencing drilled into the plaza. I've walked around behind you, Mayberger. You can see where the fences were moved and the bolts are still there. So that's annoying to me. It's like that should have been replaced. When those bolts are cut, you need to replace the paver. This is, we want our plaza pristine. We put a lot of money into it. And I just think that that's an issue. And when you have an encroachment permit, that can be a condition. It can be a condition of the CUP too. But this is something that the encroachment permit requires an annual review. If they're expanding, sorry, buddy, you gotta, bring it back to what was approved. So this is a key element of the outdoor dining. That's just a comment. I do agree that I don't understand why Mountain Farm wants to expand eastward when they have this whole area showing blank. They can just move their tables there and not move into the Ojai Olive Oil area, especially if they're bolting the fence into the plaza. If you're going to bolt it in front of your own business. I really don't want to approve the expansion, and one of the reasons is we have a non-conforming structure, use of this freezer, and we're not allowed to expand nonconformities. In fact, our ordinance, our encroachment ordinance, or nonconforming use ordinance, says you can't approve something, expand the nonconformity. Well, I see this as an expansion of a nonconformity because I'm looking at it holistically. We allowed something, shouldn't have been there. Maybe the business shouldn't have gone into that space if they couldn't accommodate their use there inside the building. All these things, I just think we need to look at it holistically. Our ordinance says we should do that. CEQA says we should do that. So I'm not comfortable with this expansion. I'm not. They have an existing CUP, or for outdoor dining. They have the panels. They can sit outside. I would approve the umbrellas. I think they look fine. The tables and chairs look fine. The fencing even is fine, but I just don't like the fact that they're bolting it into the ground on, not within their realm.
Yeah.
So
he did say that they would have pavers available if they had to move it, but to your point, it's like
yeah,
they're immediately taking over an alignment that's not
Right.
really aligned with their building.
right.
But they can return it to its original.
They could.
Okay, yeah,
It's
conditioned. I mean, it hasn't been
conditioned.
done in the
So-
past in the plaza,
Right.
and I don't know who's minding the store.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's the problem
yeah.
down the road.
The other thing is, I would approve this expansion with the fencing and everything on a condition that they remove the freezer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That may be
Go ahead.
something that we need to bring Patrick up to address, but let's see what else we have to say first.
Well, I was just wondering, I understand that we can't, that just in thinking of everything that was just said, I think that, so what is the process, I guess, to address the freezer? We can't address it tonight, obviously, but in discussion, what is that process, or is there a process for that?
So, as a nonconformity, it could be a code compliance situation where we look to address. But the nonconformity from an expansion standpoint, I'm not sure that I'm there with you, but I understand the spirit of what you're talking about. The freezer itself had already been, and the piecemeal piece, I also see where you're going with that as well. And you make a valid point there too. So from a nonconformity standpoint, it exists as it remains right now.
Mm-hmm.
So anything beyond that, conditioning it, I would recommend against doing that in terms of conditioning the removal of the freezer upon the approval of the expansion. I would recommend against that simply because it is a non-conforming use.
Right.
Well, that's what, our ordinance states in the non-conforming use ordinance, it's the city's goal to remove nonconformities. That's a goal. That's a stated goal of the ordinance. It's right in there. So when you're doing a discretionary permit, that's the perfect time to address the nonconformity.
Understood. I'm aware of that one, yes.
I think that where it's tricky is when you do the math, it's just hard to address it it's hard to address these things individually. So if it wasn't addressed in the way that Commissioner Rice-Schmidt is outlining, but maybe it is our sort of job to try to still do our best to consider it in that way, because it's pretty hard when you do the math of, let's say, the CUP of 07, 05, you have 360 square feet. That plan actually shows 24 seats, this new plan's 28 seats, maybe more depending on, but it's a lot more square footage for a couple more seats. And so the question is, why is that? Well, we know the freezer plays in, I don't think, I think the plan pretty clearly shows that the freezer takes an entire 4 seats away. So that's an issue. And I guess there is this question about the back area where it's doesn't really inspire us to, I think, approve something that goes over, even though it's not technically a property line, but goes over the kind of line of the buildings, you know, we could imagine the whole maybe back of the arcade area having nice little patios and stuff, you know, sure, that could be a possibility. So why would we give this extra space as is kind of being questioned? So I think those kind of three things just make it hard to talk about this at all without dealing with the freezer first. Then, you know, then the answer is like, I think it's like, well, we can't approve anything until we find a way to have a different discussion about the freezer. I mean, I think a negotiation's an interesting idea. I thought the Historic Commission was also maybe concerned with the electrical panel that was put on the back of the building. Maybe they're okay with that now. I'm not too sure.
I'm sure not.
That
And
was,
the tree itself, you know, we put a fence around the tree instead of the tree
Right.
being on the plaza, you know, where you have outdoor dining under an oak tree.
Yeah.
Let's put a fence around the tree.
Yeah, I don't quite understand that whole portion of it, why we need,
I don't know.
that.
It doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know. I think if we can look at it and look at the arcade design guidelines and the intent there, look at our non-conforming ordinance and try to remove any non-conformities, and allow the applicant to have what he's requesting, which is expanded outdoor dining. I think that, you know, if we condition it to remove the fence around the oak tree and remove the freezer and allow him to put it inside or create space inside his building, or some other place, I don't know where that would be, but I would be willing to approve it. But as it is right now, I'm not willing to approve the expansion.
could you, Lucas, expand upon the code compliance? Was that in relationship to the sound level, or was it something else?
No,
Why
it's in
would
relationship.
Code compliance deal
Code
with it?
compliance is in relationship to the nonconformity,
To the
not in
non-
relationship to the noise.
Okay, so code conformity, the code compliance could address the freezer situation
Yes.
with a complaint.
Well, not necessarily. We are moving into a proactive approach.
Right.
So before it would have been reactive, where we wait
Okay.
on our hands basically for someone to complain.
At this time, would it be appropriate to ask Patrick to come back up to discuss the freezer in relationship to how his business
As
occurs?
the applicant, you can do that. It's not a public. We're not having to open up public comment at that point, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So yes.
Okay. Patrick, could you please come up and talk to us about what the removal of the freezer would do to the business, and what other ideas you might have about handling this?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not the architect for the interior portion of the restaurant nor the freezer. I was just brought in just to do the outdoor seating. So I can't really speak to what the options are for that. I've shown some options for cladding the freezer in wood to match the fence, but that's as far as I'm involved in that portion.
What about Larry's suggestion about bricking it in so that it looks like the building?
Again, that would be something for the business owner to make a decision about. I don't.
Would also extend the non-compliance.
It would extend the non-compliance, but it would
Building.
be a compromise position. Is the owner online or anywhere that we could reach him?
I don't know.
Not online.
Not online. Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
But you did have a question about why we wanted to expand from the previous area of the CUP.
Mm-hmm.
When the CUP was approved, we didn't have the accessibility requirements that we do now. So once you start putting in all the clearances we need for our path of travel to move through the dining area that was shown on that previous plan, all the clearances we need at our seating to make that work, there's just not a lot of seating that's gonna be out in that patio. And then there was another comment about the movable railing system. One of the concerns with the railing system, if you look at page 3 of the PDF or of that set, you'll see there's a photo of the feet of that railing system, and it's a real concern about trip hazard. And again, getting into Americans with Disability Act, we always have to be very cognizant of a trip hazard. And so that's why when we have stairs, we always have something overhead, so someone who's has sight issues is aware that there is a potential for tripping. And so it's just it's a liability concern. And also, we just don't want anybody getting injured out there. So I just wanted to bring those 2 items up for you.
Okay, thank you. Have there been any situations in which the plaza has needed more space that we would have to move those fences for in the past?
In terms of like events in the
Yes.
rear?
Yes.
The only thing I think of is at one point we had entertained the idea of doing some sort of like night market situation within the plaza. There was interest with the business owners within that area. Staff and myself did some research on it, went to a conference, got some more information, brought it back before council, and it was just decided not to move forward with that. So it would have been like a night market kind of event, basically an event. That's all that I'm aware of.
Has staff evaluated the sound level of 56 decibels coming from that freezer?
We haven't necessarily had an evaluation. It would be really within the specs of the freezer itself. And in addition to that, I'll have to look at I'll have to look up the sound ordinance, or the noise ordinance. I'm pretty certain that 56 is within the parameters within the C1. C1 allows one of the more higher standards as it relates to noise. So I'm almost for certain it's 65 dB.
I think I've seen that too.
Yeah. Residential obviously has a significantly lower threshold, but it's not the
would
case here.
seem to me that I wouldn't care to sit at a table next to 56 dB. I'm just wondering if that's... I would like to know exactly how many decibels it is producing, and I guess I need to go back and listen to it. I would think that would be a problem for the diners in the area. I'm okay with the movable fences that you have proposed based on the fact that you can return it to its original condition. And you bring up a good point about the fence that's there being a bit of a tripping hazard. I'm good with what you've done on furniture, although I do think that having black or very dark furniture is, in our summer heat, going to make those things really hot if they get into the sun at all. The umbrellas are fine. This whole freezer thing and how many, to me, it's been approved. The client has proceeded with their business plan based on it being approved. And I think that yanking that approval away at this point, just to get rid of a nonconformance, is not being fair to our business folks. So that's my thought on it. I like the idea of bricking if it stays, it should disappear to the degree possible. And the brick sounds like it would do that as opposed to the stockade.
it's tough to pose, you know, business owner process versus community space, I think, because in the end, both should work happily together, right?
They should.
So I don't know how we exactly, I don't know if that's really our place to, that's not really our space in a way. I mean, I see how these things are called, you know, existing on the plans and stuff. I am still not clear on why there's the wood fence around the tree in the back behind the freezer as well. Why that's larger or necessary.
So in my mind, the fence that was there, which I believe the staff just reapproved a new fence in the same location, was that it?
Correct. So just some historical context, that wood fence that you're seeing, well, that was there, was put there during the pandemic, essentially. So during the pandemic, there was a number of outdoor dining permits in terms of expanding those spaces. This was one of many that we went through the process to get them approved and essentially allowing for that indoor dining to be outdoor. So it expanded this area really to over 1,000 square feet. Ballooned out and then shrunk back in. I'm just not sure how much it shrunk back in. Obviously, it's not within the parameters of what the 2007 outdoor dining permit allowed for. The fencing that went up there during the pandemic just went up. It went up without any sort of benefit of a permit, but there wasn't a permit that would have been required. I know we've talked about the permitting requirements before. There is now a fence permit that's required regardless of whether it's in the plaza or in a residential neighborhood or in the commercial area or within the manufacturing area. That's across the board. It's a permit that's required. So I think from that standpoint, you're seeing that fence there, and basically they're replacing what was already there. It was, I mean, the way in which we looked at it was before the benefit of a fence permit, but I also see where you're coming from, right?
It's always in the commercial zone and on public property, so a double whammy, it requires a discretionary permit, a CUP, something. You can't just put up a fence on public property anywhere you want. You can't. You need city approval. So we
Understood, but it was
Yeah.
done under the guise of COVID and the emergency ordinance that was in place there.
Okay.
Essentially. So
but it's non-conforming, and again, we're trying to get rid of non-conforming structures.
understood.
Okay.
Oh, boy. I don't sense that we have reached any point of commonality here.
I have a question. It's for staff. Is the issue of the freezer coming back to the city in any form, is it planned to come back to city council or the decision for that? What's the plan for that? Is there a plan?
There's currently no application in for the freezer to return to this body, but I would identify that if there was an application that identified the freezer, it would be both a director's, the process within our code identifies it as a director's exemption and a minor conditional use permit. Knowing that this outdoor dining area and space came before this body, the same would be like condition basically from a processing standpoint. So it would be a design review permit as well as a conditional use permit. So design for the cladding, somehow identifying design that's consistent as well as the use.
So maybe, since the applicant and the business, they have an outdoor dining permit right now. It runs with the land. It was approved in 2007. They can start their business with outdoor dining right now. Maybe we say something to the effect that, this is kind of where I'm going. Happy that they're opening. They can have their new umbrellas, their new chairs, their new furniture. but basically keep the area as is. Until such time they want to deal with the freezer and remove the nonconformities, the fence and the freezer, and then we'll consider expansion.
All of the pieces that you just identified in terms of not doing the expansion, but also identifying the allowance or approval of the design feature changes. When you dive into the nonconformity pieces, I would caution against doing that, simply because it hinges upon them moving forward with any of those design pieces that you just mentioned on an application coming in for a nonconformity. I get that you're saying and identifying within our code that we should be getting rid of nonconformities, but here we're identifying a nonconformity that exists. So it would be on the applicant to come forward and willingly apply for both the DRP and the CUP.
Patrick, could you tell us if this application gets denied tonight, how many people can be seated in what's currently there?
I cannot.
You cannot.
I would have to do
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff or the applicant? No. Well, in that case, the chair would entertain a motion.
Motion.
Just like okay, so it's important to understand that there are options that you have here. You can approve the application as is, you can modify that application, or you can deny the application. The modifications, I think you guys were starting to tease through with some caution. I'm advising you not to include any conditions that identify the nonconformity. Does that preclude you from doing that? No. But it's my recommendation that you not include it.
The part that has me concerned at this point is they want to put up a fence. So we're being asked to increase the space granted in the old CUP to more space.
An expansion, yes.
An expansion. But it's not just a matter of moving some fences, it's a procedure of removing bricks and installing a fence semi-permanently. So it's not a simple matter that we can just delay.
I mean, Katrina, are you feeling like, how do we approve this without the business owner kind of bringing it back to us saying, hey, we're actually like willing to look at this whole thing together as a single piece? Which is different, I think, than putting a condition on it that is, we'd be willing to talk if you're going to remove the freezer. I mean, is that, which would mean denying it, obviously, but I mean, that's one way, I guess, to go about it also.
It's an expensive.
Well, I think to Katrina's point,
we put them through.
they can keep doing what they're doing, and they can open the business and use it per the original conditional use permit. Which, you know, I also don't know I can't remember if this is all accurate still, since obviously a lot's happened over there. Like, is it actually they can't use this space next to the building because it's just not exactly clear, you know, like this area. So maybe they actually have that, and they, you know, maybe they're still at 20 people. I mean, you know, it's not what they want, obviously, but it's something, and it allows to get them started. And if they really want more, then we're sort of saying we need more, you know, because we're put in a really tough position where it's like I've never dealt with a non-conforming use that wasn't, at least 20, 30 years old,
Yeah, I mean, this
so
is a year
to have
old.
a non-conforming use that's
Or not
just a
even.
matter of sort of process and not just because it was like already existing or, grandfathered in that way.
But he was given permission.
Absolutely,
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
So,
I've
that's
worked
an
at
expensive event.
jurisdictions where
Yeah, it is.
their approvals were rescinded because they weren't approved,
Yeah. For process.
per the process. I mean, it was approved with a zoning clearance, which wasn't the appropriate approval process.
Right.
So that approval should be rescinded,
Right.
and the application should go forward in the proper manner.
Right.
And then we can approve or deny it in the, proper process.
Yep.
So, that's been done in the past. I know several different jurisdictions have rescinded permits that were issued in error. I don't know why we're not talking about that. I guess that's for another day, but it happens. So, I think the issue of the freezer can be rectified.
Yeah.
Not easily. I would like to put this off until we can have the owner address this situation, because if they need the freezing capability, it's going to require some remodeling and restructuring of the current building. It's historic. I guess that's only for the outside, right? But I would be amenable to denying this at this time, letting them proceed with the freezer as is until we work it out and use the space they have. So I guess,
It's hard to know with what's happening inside, as well.
it
It's
doesn't,
probably a mechanical room, but it also, I can't tell if there's already a freezer and this is just like an additional freezer. Anyways, these are things that we would be able to discuss.
if the owner were here, we would
Or,
have a
yeah.
better shot at,
Yeah.
Well, sometimes the
Seeing if-
spaces in downtown, in the arcade are just small buildings, and if you need more space, you go to a bigger building.
Yeah,
I
or
mean,
you
it's-
get a
It can't be,
commissary building or.
yeah,
Mhm.
we're trying to give away public land so we can ensure the success of this one business. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
so would you like to make a motion about that? Or we'll sit here for a long time.
Yeah. I make a motion that we deny the project as presented.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Discussion?
Further discussion? Lucas, I bet you have something to say.
I do. Here's what I recommend in terms of the denial, that you continue it to the next meeting for a resolution to be drawn up that identifies the denial and identifying the specific,
Items to be changed?
well, not changed, because we're denying it as is. The specific justification pieces or findings that cannot be made.
Elaborate on that.
So within this, there are specific findings that have to be made. We've identified that within the resolution that are in the positive. Those findings that cannot be made in the positive, we will need to go back and have that conversation in terms of those that cannot be made in the positive. And then a resolution that comes back for this body to vote on for the denial. Does that make sense?
Is that because they want the umbrella? Like they could come back and say, well, we have this CUP, but we still want these umbrellas or these
Well, it's
tables
a
or-"
denial for the expansion.
Yeah, right.
So they can go back to the original 2007 approval
Mhm.
and then and move forward with that.
Mhm.
This, from a processing standpoint, I would highly recommend we do that, not by minute action. That way it's clear.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
to me.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, can you amend your motion?
I amend the motion to bring it back to the next meeting with a resolution, which will highlight all our findings
The findings for denial.
for denial.
Yes.
Okay, I second that motion.
Sherry, roll call?
Reich-Schmidt,
Yes.
Chesley,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes.
As a final piece to this, I'll highlight the findings based on the conversation tonight that don't seem to meet the intent of what these findings are for. So just know that that'll be coming forward. You haven't identified a specific meeting, but I'll basically make it for the next available meeting. So
Does this give the applicant
The
an
applicant's
opportunity
online now.
to
Is it too late?
revise anything?
say that again.
Does this give the applicant the opportunity to change anything in there?
If we denied it without prejudice, does that mean that he can come back at another time with revisions?
No, a denial basically means he can't come up with the same application for an entire year. So he would have to basically do something that would be substantial in terms of a change. So he's already got an application that shows an expansion, a change in design. It would have to be something more substantial.
Like removing a freezer?
Or is there any other?
Removal, modification, something along those lines. It can't be the same application.
Can we also, so I would recommend him just coming in for a DE for the umbrella and the chairs, because I think we're all okay with those, if he wants to move that direction. Or I feel like he shouldn't have to go through a DE since we are all kind of already,
The alternative to that would be a modification to what they're requesting, not allowing for the expansion, but then allowing for the design pieces you just mentioned.
Then we'd
Okay,
also, but how would that work with the fencing? Because, well, we couldn't approve the fencing. Because they need a new plan.
The fencing
They need a new
design you could approve.
Just fencing design, but they need a new plan
yeah,
before.
they would need a new plan.
Well, I guess they would be using the original CUP plan.
Yeah, with
Yes.
the panels.
They would install it. Well, they would install it that way. If we're okay with the design of how it gets installed with the brick being removed, the thing being attached, a piece of brick kind of going around it to hide that, but only in the configuration of the original CUP.
Lucas?
that,
I don't know, I'm
that's an
done.
They've already
expensive,
taken it.
we've really
We've-
put a lot of cost onto this project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've already voted too. I mean,
How big a fence is a question now for the owner? I mean,
Hold on, did we
how
already take
many
a, did we
tables,
already
took
take
a
a
vote.
how many
vote?
chairs
So
do you
the
order?
item is
It's
done, we're
over.
moving on to the next item.
Okay,
So should I tell the owner?
that was painful.
Did you say something, Sherry?
I think the applicant came on online
Oh.
after we voted.
Oh, okay, got it.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay. All right, moving on.
Do you want to reconsider the vote?
I don't.
Yeah, all right, moving on.
Welcome back, Brad.
All right, let's let Brad sit. Yeah.
Okay, we are now moving on to to item 3, a design review permit and tentative track map for a proposed 5-unit, single-story, deed-restricted, 100% affordable housing project on North Montgomery Street. Could we have the staff report on that item?
Yes, I'll set the table here. I know we have a presentation that the design team's gonna come up and talk through, but I just want to set the table. So at the last meeting, there was an input session, which this body as well as the community got an opportunity to kind of vet some concerns that they had. Those were prescribed and identified within the administrative report, where the questions and then responses by staff were put together. And I think there was 11 or 12 of those questions and responses that came forward. I wanted to highlight a couple of those. I'm not necessarily going to go through them all, but I wanted to highlight a couple of them. One, I know there was a lot of conversation and discussion in regards to a reduction in the number of units from, say, 5 to 4. That was identified within the staff report, but I just wanted to put it out there as a part of the conversation today that if this project was to go from aside from the fact that this has been vetted, at least from the site plan standpoint, through city council in terms of lots of conversations with city council, working through the entire process with an MOU and an E&A. There is a larger issue that I've identified here as well, and that is they would not, if they went from 5 units to 4 units, they would go from being qualified as a housing project, which affords them a lot of different opportunities as an affordable, 100% affordable housing project, to, through the density bonus standards, to not being able to qualify for that. So there's a baseline for affordable housing projects that requires 5 units. So if you don't have 5 units and you come in at 4, like the parking, any of those other incentives or concessions that have been identified within the staff report and they've identified within their project description are off the table. So it becomes a much more difficult project to move forward. So I just wanted to make that clear. I know it was identified in the staff report, but I just wanted to have that out in the open. The second piece that I wanted to mention, and before I have the design team come up, there was a couple questions that came in, and there's a third piece too. There was a couple questions that came in regards to the track map as it lays out, and I know in the project plans it's very vanilla in terms of how it looks, which is pretty typical for track maps, tentative track maps. A lot of times the lines don't have weight to them or color or contrast, and then you're left to kind of scratch your head in terms of what's going on. So I wanted to just show what that track map looks like, and I put some color to it to give some context. All right, so here you're looking at the site plan. Obviously the site's vacant, so these are new buildings. The buildings themselves have that orange color. The color that you're also seeing up there is purple. Those are the proposed new boundary lines for each of the 5 lots. And then I have a red, but it's not necessarily showing up as red up there, that shows the boundary lines for the lot itself. The gray areas that you're seeing up in the upper right-hand corner and the lower left-hand corner, those are easements to allow for access to those 2 lots that appear to be landlocked, but are not because of the easements themselves. I know there was a couple of questions as to whether or not when you're creating a track map, whether or not you can have 0 lot lines. And this is showing where if you do it in this manner, you can have 0 lot lines. As a 5-unit project, those can be incentives that you can identify or waivers to the development standards. If it becomes 4, that now becomes a variance. And I'll just tell you, I don't see findings for a variance in this case, right? So if we're looking at a land use piece, a tool, that's the difference between whether or not it's an affordable housing project that fits into the housing project categories for density bonus versus a variance provision and standards and findings that we're required to make, okay? There's that point. And then the third point is comments that came in as it relates to the land lease agreement. That is not before this body. That is really a tool or a mechanism that the city council will be wavering through and sorting through the details of. It's not necessary for this body to look at. A general condition as it relates to it, yes, but the details of it, no. It's no different than an affordable housing agreement moving forward. There's a condition that's applied to it, and then the details are worked out after the project receives its approvals.
This might be some repetitive information you have to share. So the track map is necessary in order, so each unit has to exist on its own.
The way I say, I'll have Habitat talk through that a little bit. It is the format by which they operate.
Okay.
And they can talk, I think we talked about it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
They can clarify that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yep, that's their model.
Okay.
It builds in
wasn't
that,
fully.
I don't want to take their thunder. I'll let them talk
Yeah, yeah.
that through.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Question?
No, I had the same question because a member of the public had written to the planning commission, and that was one of the questions. So that's definitely something I'd like to hear about.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at this point?
I do. So why are we seeing this?
Why is this before this body?
Yes.
Yes, so as a design review permit and as a tentative track map, both of those come before this body for consideration. Now, the interesting thing about this is a recommendation, because as a track map, or a tentative track map in this case, works, this body becomes a recommendation body that goes before City Council for final consideration. So that's the process.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
And so the tract map that we're discussing, I mean, that would only be as long as the lease on the land.
The 99-year lease,
99.
right.
Yeah.
The other piece that I should mention is, as a tentative track map, there is a final track map that would go forward and be considered by City Council, not by this body. So you have the opportunity here to impose conditions that then get forwarded to City Council to be considered and included in a final result.
What happens after 99 years?
Goes back to the city.
That's an excellent question that will be identified and teased out through the land lease agreement.
But the tentative tract map is permanent. It doesn't
Yes.
go away at 99
It's the,
degrees.
well, yes,
99
it
degrees.
is. The interesting thing is it likens itself to the similarities to affordable housing agreements. If it's a rental, it's a 45-year minimum, and that's, let me finish. It's a 45-year agreement that can be renewed and is identified as being considered for renewal after that 45 years. The same thing is true for affordable housing agreements that are for sale. That is a 55-year agreement that then can be renewed or extended as it gets close to that time. The housing element itself actually tracks these, and so we're aware of them, and there was one a few years back that was coming up on renewal or expiration, and we were able to negotiate the continuation of that.
So you're saying the tract map is permanent?
Yeah, the tract map is permanent.
So
Once it's
if
approved.
in
it's-
100 years, however the contract works out, it gets sold to someone else, they would
They could sell it to
They would have it as
five
five.
different people.
as five lots
And then they figure out what to do with the houses that are
landlocked.
on top of each other.
It's identified as 99 years. The reality is that even with these 55 and 45, we don't see them as expiring and then they return back to market rate.
Yeah.
Although that is presumably what could happen. What ends up happening is you negotiate the expansion or the extension.
Yeah. I guess it just means that the tracts are important. They're not just a part of this temporary discussion potentially.
So it's an interesting, in the years that I've done this, and Commissioner Reichman, I'm not sure that you've seen this as well. I've never seen a lease that also then turns into a track map. It's not, it's a little unusual,
Yeah.
but it can be done.
It's like a mobile home park, kind of.
Right. Yeah.
Or it can be
where the
like
building is owned, but the land is not.
Right.
Right.
Okay. If there are no further questions for staff at this point, did you have something, Brad?
Yeah, I do. I have a question. Is there anything to know relative to the
Microphone?
owning?
Oh.
Sorry, that was on there. Sorry. The question is there anything relative to know to the individuals who will own these homes? How does the tract map impact their ownership? Does it in fact give them the ability, because we're effectively dividing that lot?
You mean, does it give them land
To give
that
them
they're
the
then
ownership?
required to pay
Right.
property taxes on? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. It functions in that same manner, yes.
Yeah.
So is there a homeowners association with this 5 little unit? Like, who takes care of landscaping
I'll
in the
let-
parking lot?
Yeah, let's let Habitat talk through that.
Okay.
Because they've got a model by which they operate, and so,
Okay.
rather than than me kind of fumble through it.
Do you want the applicant to address us before public comments?
Yeah, let's have them come up. They've got a very similar PowerPoint presentation, but then they've got some information towards the
Okay.
end.
We will now hear from the applicant. Habitat for Humanity.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Darcy Taylor, CEO of Habitat for Humanity. Just a couple of things, and then I'll let Lauren talk through a couple of the issues. First of all, that we wanted to make sure that you were sensitive to the fact that we heard all the questions and the issues that have come up for the last 6 years, and addressed many of those, including the issue of the two-story structure, which we'll talk about a little tonight. And then there's a number of questions on here that do not apply. But what we wanted to say was that there are some factual information here that I think it's important for you to know, is that when we embarked on this journey 6 years ago, it was with a partnership with the city of Ojai to provide low-income housing for elderly individuals and veterans and people who could qualify. The intent of the project has always been that as its central purpose. I want to just mention a couple of things here that are a part of the design that we put together that are relative to how and why we ended up with what we have here. The important thing is, one, that we've designed a project where it is affordable for the particular types of clients that we think will buy these homes. They're not single-family homes, which would be much more expensive and require much more care and a different long-term agreement related to the lease and the care of the property. So that's one of the things. Also, it's an opportunity for this project to specifically deal with the issue of senior housing and veteran housing, which is, for the city of Ojai, I think is an important issue that we think this particular project is designed for, even though if we are unable to find that particular constituents to move into the area, anyone with low-income qualifications under HUD can qualify. The third thing I want to say here that's important is that everybody who applies for this housing community will have to apply with the understanding that they will fit within the guidelines of HUD and the low-income qualifications for the state of California. So it's really designed in a way where they gives them an opportunity to kind of narrow the focus on who buys. And obviously the city council, I think 4 years ago, asked us to, in our MOU, to agree to allow for first right of refusal for people who either live or work in the city of Ojai, which I think is a great thing to have as well. The other thing we want to talk briefly about is the fact that the Habitat model requires an issue of sweat equity. The difference between this build, which is designed for the elderly and veterans and certain population that may not be able to swing a hammer or to put sweat equity in, there are other ways for them to qualify for the sweat equity model, doing other things that are not physical on a build site. So our international bylaws require that anybody that owns a Habitat home has to work on that home in some capacity. We provided an opportunity and a pathway for people who are elderly to be able to accomplish that, either through community service in the city of Ojai and other things that are being done on the work site, but that qualification can still be met. Lastly, I would say this. Our whole design, our whole reason for being in Ojai is that we think that this is, for us, for Habitat Ventura County, a stepping stone to our involvement with the city to be able to build other low-income housing in this city. We chose this project because we wanted to be able to demonstrate our ability to provide quality housing that's low income and affordable for a specific population of individuals who live and work in Ojai. And because we think we can demonstrate that we will get other opportunities to provide low-income housing in other markets in the city as well. So we didn't just come to the city and say, hey, we're a low-income builder, let us build here. We came with a purpose and a design to, one, meet a need that you had, two, provide desperate housing at affordable pricing, and third, to allow for this to be an opportunity for us to get multiple other opportunities to build in the city. So with that, we want to talk about the designs again and address some of the questions that came up in the last meeting.
Before you sit down, can I ask you to address the HOA and
Yeah.
the tentative track map?
Yeah.
I know that is a big question.
Yeah, so typically, what happens with HOA construction sites, we own the land. And therefore, we are able to control the HOA process through 3 documents that the state of California allows us to construct. CC&Rs, which are legal documents that allow for the owner of the property of the land to hold the homeowners under the 55-year agreement to certain terms and conditions in order to live in that unit. It can be as simple as in the CC&Rs, you can't park in your driveway, or you can't park on your front yard, or that kind of thing, or you can't paint your house a certain color without that being approved. You can't put shutters on the windows. You can't put, in some of the neighborhoods we build, you can't put wrought iron over your windows or your door. The CC&Rs are designed with that in the simplest way, simplest form. And then the more complicated issues in the CC&R are things like you can't have more than, depending on the build, a certain number of people living in that house. You cannot turn a garage into a living area. So it goes from simple to very complicated. That's one of the documents we use. The second document you use in place of an HOA is that we have maintenance agreements. And the maintenance agreements are designed when we build in the state of California. If you build, I think it's 4 or more units that are together, you're required to have HOAs. Well, what we do, the maintenance agreement is designed to provide protection for the homeowners and to ensure that where there is connectable structures such as shared walls or roofs or those kind of things, that the maintenance agreement that we draw up, a legal binding agreement, holds homeowners accountable for the areas that they live in. And that's one of the ways that we obviously don't have to have HOAs. The third area in how we control HOAs is we try not to build more than 3 units that are connected. And if we can stay under that number, then items 1 and 2 I just discussed maintain and manage the properties. Once you get to 4, the DRE, State of California Real Estate Association, requires us to do an HOA. And in my 7 years as CEO of Habitat and all the units we've built, we've only had 1. And we didn't know that we had to do it when we put Port Hueneme together. We sued the Real Estate Association for the simple fact that when you, I don't know if anybody here lives in an HOA. I live in one. It's a formula. So you plug in a bunch of numbers and it really spits out what that HOA cost is. And it's determined based on the number of units that are in the build. It can be as many as few as 5, or like where I live, 280 houses, right? And that formula is determined by the number of units that are sharing the HOA and the common areas that are part of that agreement. Like where I live, I have pools, I have gyms, I have walking paths, I have all those things like that that are part of the HOA. In my Camarillo units, there's none of that, right? There are 8 units, and when we plug the numbers in to the real estate association, I bet $100 none of you know how much those HOA fees were.
That's why I don't live in an HOA.
So, and Camarillo, now just think with me, the HOA fees for those 8 homeowners was $517. That's on top of their mortgage,
A month?
a month. And little of this, right? This is why we sued the real estate association. We got an exception for that build. We couldn't get it for Camarillo. Over the course of the 55-year agreement, that HOA would have raised over $2.7 million. The reality is the homeowners, low-income homeowners, would have purchased those homes 2 times over. That's why we don't like HOAs for low-income families. It's really not affordable, and it's and quite frankly, it's morally wrong to charge a low-income family those kind of numbers to live in a house that they only pay $250 for, and have a mortgage for, they range from $900 to $1,400 a month. So that's why we avoid HOAs, and that's the process in which we design agreements that keep us from having to do that.
Before you sit down?
So going back to the maintenance, so what happens when, say, the concrete gets cracked, or, on one of the parking lots is, failing, and
Well, so we don't have parking lots.
Well, there's 6 parking spaces that are community, right? They're on 2 legal lots. So that's why I'm trying to figure out how are those getting maintained when there's 1 unit on a lot with 3 parking spaces, and then another unit on a lot with 3 parking spaces?
Right.
But the other 3 units are gonna be using those spaces.
So that's why the land lease is so important. What and how it's designed to operate is Habitat homeowners are only responsible for the structure that they're in. The city of Ojai will be responsible for maintaining the landscaping, maintaining the sidewalks, maintaining the parking areas, maintaining all the things that are not part of the structure. Because if you keep in mind, our homeowners only own the structure. They don't own the land. And so the city, that's one of the things that we're negotiating with our city. The city right now, city attorney, and our attorneys at RELAW are trying to figure out how that maintenance agreement that's not associated with the actual structure is going to exist. We don't have, the reality is, if we don't own the land, then we're not responsible for the common areas. The common areas belong to the city because it's on city land. It's like a park.
So the city wants to retain
They
the
want the land, right? And
So they're responsible for the maintenance
and that's the trade-off, because if the city were to give Habitat for Humanity that land,
then we would, on our maintenance agreements and our CCNRs, we would design them in a way where we would have people take care of their landscaping, or there'll be a common area, or whatever, the sidewalks, the parking area, those kind of things. But the city wants to keep the land, and we're okay with that. That's a good deal. But they're gonna be responsible to maintain that property and that land, just like as if it was a building was sitting on a park. They have to cut the grass and maintain the parking areas and all those issues that are not part of the structure. We'll take care of the structure and make sure the roofs and all that is taken care of over the 55 years that the homeowners live in there, or the agreement is in place. But the actual land itself and the maintenance of that land will be maintained by the legal agreement that we come up with the city.
Okay, do each property owners have a lease agreement with the city then, each one? So there would be 5 lease agreements in place?
No. Why would they need a lease agreement with the city?
Well, because maybe, you know, just having outdoor storage, you know, we wouldn't
Can't do
allow
that.
that. You can't do that.
Can't do that. The maintenance agreements and CCRs don't allow that.
If there's a failure, say, of a wall between 2 units, does the repair cost for that get divided between those 2 owners?
Between the two
or
homeowners.
between,
Within the two
or,
owners.
okay.
Yeah. And then also, in all fairness, our roof contractors have 20-year guarantees for roofs, right? Structures are like that too. All the Habitat subcontractors write into their agreements those kinds of securities to make sure that for a period of time, that's covered under the contractor's guidelines. And then homeowner insurance is part of that process as well. So there's a number of ways that walls, shared walls, and roofs, which are the main issues, right? You know, there are some issues are like painting. We don't want, you know, the city can require us, you know, not to paint our units purple or blue. You know, we've got a couple houses in Camarillo, they call them the Miami houses. One is yellow and one is blue. It looks kind of weird there, but the city said that's the colors they wanted, right? So they can control that and over the term of the lease, and we write that into the maintenance agreement.
If there were, say, a roof issue and the 2 owners disagreed about what to do with it, who do they go to?
They go to Habitat. In the CCNR agreements, there was a whole paragraph that talks about lawsuits, mediation, all that's in the CCNRs. And I can tell you, of all the houses we've built, I've never had a homeowner sue or there be an issue that we didn't take care of. And quite frankly, these are our people. If someone in Piru, you know, called me tomorrow and said, I got a crack in my driveway, I'd probably send out one of my construction teams to go out and fix the driveway. You know, these are low-income families, and they're a part of the Habitat family, and we have, in many ways, we feel an obligation to look out for them and look after them as long as they're in that house until they've completed their mortgage process and that house becomes theirs. Then all bets are off. Then they're responsible for that themselves.
I want to go back on the common area maintenance topic for a minute. Are there any other projects in town, any other housing in town that the city of Ojai maintains the common areas on?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
No.
And so from a, you know, they're pitching, are we prepared to catch the ball they are pitching to us relative to maintaining these?
Yeah, the difference there is those aren't owned by the city. None of that is owned by the city. I mean, it went through our process, but owned privately.
But given that this goes forward, this would be the first and only project that the city is actually maintaining common areas within a housing development.
Well, the first, I mean,
Yeah.
there's other
Yeah.
other land we own, yeah.
Yes.
Any other questions before we continue? All right. First of all, I just want to reiterate again how much I really do appreciate Habitat. And I listened to Darcy speak about the homes that I get to work on for these families. It truly is an honor. And I do greatly appreciate the input and thought that goes into the comments that we receive from both the public and the commission as well. So if I can have the next 2 slides. Again, just a reminder of the context of the neighborhood, several churches around, Spanish architecture, and also the adjacent single-family ranch-style neighborhood along Franklin as well. Next slide, please. In terms of the unit count, that was really a directive that we received from the city council. And that is what is allowed, and essentially by right, the density that the site is entitled to is the 5 units. And typically with other affordable housing developers that I've worked with in other jurisdictions, they take the density, and then with the state law density bonus, and especially 100% affordable, they then look to ways to maximize the number of units that they can provide. And so, like Lucas mentioned several weeks ago, that, you know, by right, and this is kind of a unique opportunity, and it's actually kind of a great opportunity because I'm not here pressured to max out the site. I'm not feeling a pressure from the client because I'm in this weird situation where my client is Habitat and my client is the city council. So we've got this balancing act. We want to make something that is responsible to the community, but also does the most good with this community resource. There are not a lot of city lots that are sitting waiting for affordable housing that can do good, prioritized for the residents of Ojai, for the people that live and work in this community. So that being said, we're directed at 5 units, and I regret pulling the other slide, but we had several different iterations, if you remember, and one direction was, well, let's get tiny homes on there and let's see what we can do. And we were able to get up to 8, but that was without any parking, and that was a no-go. So we dropped it down to 6, and we added some parking, still not enough parking, and let's look at how we can maybe integrate a small, modest family home as well. So that's where we're at. And the site design is that's intended to mirror what you would experience on a single family lot, where the driveways act as the parking lot, the surface parking. You know, very rare are people these days able to park 2 cars in their garage. My house, that ended years ago. It's full of the kids' stuff now. So those are pulled away from the corner, where the centerpiece of the site is the single-family home, with then creating a courtyard tucked away from the street, utilizing the tiny home duplexes. And I just want to highlight, Lucas brought up the concessions, the zoning rules that with affordable housing we're allowed to break. I really pushed to make those internal, and most of those concessions are utilized with the setbacks with these units that are on the interior. So the rhythm and the pattern of the buildings is that what you would expect of a single family home. You have typically a 5-foot setback on a side yard, and we're 10 feet from the street corner with that single family home. So we're really not trying to be impactful to the neighborhood. We're trying to be self-contained as best we can with a site design. And then one other thing I want to highlight is the concern about safety. We're proposing a 3-way stop at Franklin and Montgomery as a part of this project, to be able to help alleviate some of the traffic concerns, the residents on Franklin to be able to enter and leave their street more safely, and then also to be able to slow down some of the traffic on Montgomery as well. Next slide, please. And again, in keeping with the context of the neighborhood, the material palette, we're geared towards a composite siding, both in lap siding and a board and batten style, which is typical of kind of that agricultural style of ranch housing. Next slide. And then the interior side yards. And next slide. And also invited our landscape architect to talk a little bit about plant selection and planting, Brian Broderson.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So first of all, the landscape at this point is very preliminary. It is, the intent was to provide shade at the courtyard, the shared courtyard that's between the buildings, and to do what we can to soften and screen the parking, since there's going to be 3 spaces on each side. There is a civil consideration here, so there's buyer retention that exists at the corner, on both sides of the corner, and so that would need to be planted with appropriate adapted plants to that particular situation. We are because this has been very educational for me to understand how the arrangement is with the city and with Habitat. So given that peculiarity, we would be very happy to work with the city maintenance, how the city would prefer to maintain it, because it can be planted many different ways. But the goal was to have trees are the thing that take the longest to grow and also provide sort of the best benefit in the landscape over the long term. The understory plantings, the shrubs and things can change over time, but the direction that we take, we're very happy to be led by some city input for that, whether we want to go with a more native approach, which can create a higher maintenance for the city, or we can do what we would typically recommend, which is a combination of very firm plantings and things that are very understandable to your typical maintenance crew. Anyway.
Was the tree master plan, the Ojai tree master plan, is that still a valid document that we use?
Yes, it is. I want to just, yes, it is. That's to answer your question.
Okay, I was wondering if that was referenced at all for this project.
For the landscaping, I don't think so at this point.
For the trees?
Yes, for the trees. Well,
It was?
landscaping and trees. No. Can you identify what trees you're proposing here?
Absolutely. So I'm not sure how to point, but the largest tree in the center near the courtyard is a native sycamore. And then there's another canopy tree there, which is a tipu, which is just at a first go. It's a fairly fast growing tree, and it would provide good canopy and some nice flowering in the spring. And then the purple is the native western redbud, which I would assume is on your list. And then there's some other trees which are specific to uses. There's I think it's there's a Tristania laurina, which is a very, very common small evergreen tree, which is extremely low maintenance, and that's just to provide some evergreen tree to the thing, because we have a lot of deciduous trees in the plan. And then the other is another red bud. We have both red buds. We have both the native red bud, and then we have the one that has the purple leaves, the forest pansy. So I would be kind of surprised if those trees aren't in your list. And they're not street trees. This is a housing development.
Right.
Right.
There's still neighborhood context too. The question that if I could just pose a question here. There are new wildfire resilient standards that are coming down. Well, they started January 1st. Have you started looking at those, WUI, essentially?
I am extremely well versed in that, because I'm the city landscape architect for Agora Hills, and the entire city is a high fire zone. I was not aware
for this particular project, that it was in it was rated as a high fire severity zone, and that was a consideration. So we would definitely adjust everything if that is true.
So it's not, but what we continue to find with projects like this is that we want to over-deliver from that standpoint. So it's something to consider. It's outside of the high fire zone, but
Well, we would, what I would recommend would be that we look at, the good news is that we have trees in the plan now that are pretty good. There are a lot of trees on the plan currently. We would definitely need to reduce that somewhat dramatically, because we're really within the 10-foot zone everywhere on a project of this type. So we might have some compromises where, hey, do we really want some shade in this location? Do we really want a large native tree here? Or do we want to do something different? We could change the sycamore to an oak, and the oaks are extremely fire resistant, even though they're rated as 30 feet from structure. So
I would recommend that just on a maintenance issue. I mean, if the city is doing maintenance on a sycamore tree, they cause so much leaf litter. I mean, it's
Yeah.
beautiful, but it's
right.
And keeping
It's a
them
lot of work.
Keeping the branches away from the roofs would be a constant.
And also you have vines, you have a creeping fig and a Boston ivy.
The creeping fig was mainly for the trash enclosure.
Okay,
It's a typical thing we do at trash enclosures, just to grind them up
Okay.
a little bit. Those could be eliminated.
okay, and because the Boston ivy it can get wild too. And I'm just concerned that,
This is another maintenance issue. It
Yes.
just depends on who's doing
yes.
it, right?
And so I would recommend nixing those.
Sure. And the fire department hates vines.
I mean, I think they're pretty, but they can get out of hand, and if you're not, on the ivy and the creeping fig, it
Are
can
you
get out of hand.
Are you all aware of the 0 to 5 foot no ember zone, which has been rejected by the city of Los Angeles, but is still in play because the fire department is promoting it? On this particular project, you can see we're fairly tight. It would almost eliminate all the planting. I think there are ways to work around that. And the fire department, the reason why they don't say that no ember zone can include succulents and things that don't burn is because they don't have the sophistication to be able to review the plans that come to them on that level. And so they're just like, I'll just do nothing there.
That's
So
unfortunate.
just so you know, that's sort of where that comes from. And we would be glad to kind of do the dance about that, just to make sure the project still looks good, because, I mean, you can see it would be pretty bare without it.
Decorative gravel and succulents would be something you would,
We can do some of that. One of the challenges that we've had is that the bioretention areas, which are sloped and such, they will not hold the gravel, and that's at the front of the project. We would need to kind of play around with that. But no wood, I mean, we can limit the wood mulch and that sort of thing near the building, because that's the biggest, I think the biggest
Right.
danger is the wood mulch near the building.
So would you look at the tree master plan? And
Absolutely.
then,
I'm not sure I didn't, but I will.
okay.
And also,
then
I think
it-
things are gonna change around a bit if there's an interest in changing the plan to address the fire severity potential. There's a lot of homes around there that are pretty well treed in, so we
yeah,
can.
most of Ojai.
Right, right, and we can, and I mean, just changing some species, like the oaks, is a great example of creating a lot of fire resistance right there.
That's what I recommend.
I think is a knock-on effect of, what you're talking about a little bit. So as I read it, condition 8 says that this project should consider enhanced fire safety. And I guess the question would be, why aren't we requiring it?
So it's not in the high fire zone, so we can recommend, you could, because it's our property, we can require that. We can take it a
As
step further versus.
As a condition of our money, and now we know,
additionally, or at least new information to me. Now we have a maintenance expense, actually, that comes with
The
this
should can
property.
be shade to a shall, sure.
Right, but it seems like as a requirement of that funding, we could say that we want this to be absolutely fire hardened.
I would interject that if you do that, then you won't have any trees.
Any trees.
I mean, it may not be the appearance that you're hoping
Mhm.
for.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a way that I can work with you for that and make it better for you. But if you do want to do that, I mean, we can do that also. But,
Yeah, and
but once you make that statement, now we're under the
Yeah,
the
you have
requirements
limits.
of the defensible space and the fuel modification, and it won't be a lot there.
Yeah, and maybe there's a middle ground that says the roofing requirement, some of those,
That's already
You're
there.
already-
yeah, some of those other things are,
Absolutely.
covered as
Yeah.
part of that, and we find that middle ground between looking good, being relatively easy to maintain, and not costing the city too much, or the people in the city. And, okay, thank you.
Okay, at this point, we will open the public hearing.
I think, yes, yeah,
I thought you were leaving, sorry.
I am.
You haven't.
Well, if the questions come up,
3.
well, it's prepared.
Okay. We first have John Trent.
Back again. Good to see you guys. How are you doing? So I'll probably sound like a broken record because I've been saying this since 2019. But and I just got a bunch of messages from our neighbors. So I think there was like 5 of us, 5 households that are kind of represented all along Franklin. Obviously, we like the stop sign approach. I didn't see that until tonight, which is nice. Franklin has safety issues when you turn right or left out of Franklin onto Montgomery. It's a very dangerous intersection just because of the cars that are parked along Montgomery. I know we talked about this last time at ad nauseum, but I just wanted to bring it up again. So we have a housing proposal, probably the largest in Ojai's history, or at least in the last 20 years, proposed on South Montgomery and Ojai Avenue, which is going to be the old Chaparral. I think they're proposing, Ojai USD is proposing 93 units. So that's probably another 200 cars on Montgomery. It's already full on Montgomery, so that's going to put more cars. The Becker Group is going to move forward. I think that's 63 units, so that's probably 120 cars. So that's all in the downtown area. We have Bryant Street that's going to go on board. That's 50 units, so that's another probably 100 cars. So all told, you're probably looking at 400 cars to the downtown area. Already traffic intensive on Ojai Avenue, especially on weekends. It's ridiculous to that intersection on South Montgomery and Ojai Avenue is ridiculous. It's just so hard to turn left out of there. It's impossible. So anyway, traffic is an issue. Montgomery's already got street parking issues where we can't find parking. Franklin, we only have very small lots. We have usually 1 car in our lot, so our guests have to park on Montgomery. So Montgomery is always full. We have businesses that are located in that area. We have another affordable housing unit right up north of us that has lots of overflow onto the street. So we're real concerned about parking. So anyway, I bring that up again just to kind of iterate why we are looking to really push for 4 units with accommodation for enough car parking, at least like 8 or 6 car, spots where folks can park their cars. One thing I did want to ask Lucas, you did mention that one of the hard rules is 5 counts as a housing project, and 4 would not count as a housing project. But I wanted to see if that is still a discretion where we could give conditions or we could give concessions. There you go, thank you. We could give concessions to the project on our own discretion, meaning that they wouldn't have the right, it wouldn't be by right for them, but it would be a discretionary thing that the city could provide for them. I'm just curious if that's something that could be done. And if that could go to city council as saying, hey, we would like to see 4 units with conditions for the concessions. So anyway, that's it, my 3 minutes are up. But go ahead if you want to answer.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
Sure. So
do.
the 5 to 4 would, and that's kind of what I was talking about earlier, would take it into the variance realm.
Mm-hmm.
And those findings are the strictest of standards in terms of making those findings, meaning it typically requires some fairly crafty and creative language for that to happen. Could it happen here? Maybe. If we take it from 5 to 4, it's just a slightly different process. It's still a land use review, discretionary, comes before this body.
You'd still have concessions for parking, you'd still have concessions for zoning or lot lines and setbacks.
You're not held to the density bonus standards at that point, so you're looking at it in terms of opening up the entire playbook for the development standards, all the ones that you just mentioned, plus more. So, yeah.
Okay.
It is something to contemplate and have a discussion on, but just recognize that those are 2 different mechanisms that trigger.
Okay,
So.
and just on positive notes, we like trees, more trees the better. We love the stop signs, so that's great. We like the design, it fits in with the neighborhood, so thank you. Single stories, good job.
Thank you, John. Heidi Whitman is next.
Hi, I'm Heidi Whitman, a resident of town. I live about 4 blocks from this project. I love this project. I'm so excited. I keep asking, when is this going to be done? Because we need the housing, and I just think this is just so great. However, I don't think you're able to do this tonight. I'm sitting there, and as folks are talking, I am so confused, and so you must be too, because I haven't seen any reference anywhere to seniors or veterans. I was present at city council meetings when this was discussed, including when the city decided to keep the land and just sell the houses. So I completely don't understand why a tract map is needed, as the homes will not be deeded with the land under the home. And are they going to have their own land lease? If that's the point, then at the point that these homes are sold, I don't understand why Habitat for Humanity has to be in the middle of it. I think that I'm really interested in if there's a law that prevents a tiny maintenance fee. Maybe I used the wrong terminology when I said HOA, but I recognize that the city will have to maintain this because it is their land. So additionally, there's been references tonight to 55 years versus this 99-year lease. Even the resolution before you tonight says, it references Ojai bungalows in the very first whereas. And so I just don't think you're ready. I think that the devil's in the details to make it great for the neighborhood and the neighbors. I think you absolutely need a deed restriction because we have a very poor memory in the city, and often nobody remembers what was agreed upon. And then finally, I really think this is a great project. I just think that we need to take the time to find out exactly what's going on here, because it's not clear from what's been said, what's been written. I went back to the last meeting and previous meetings, and I don't know that Habitat's ever done a project before in the county where the land hasn't been given to them, like where the city retained the land. I know Ojai never has done that. So we just need to make sure that we all know what we're doing, and it just doesn't appear that way now. But please do this project. It's really a great project. I just think that you need to figure out some of this stuff, because it talks about tenants in here, and many of these projects in other communities, there's a covenant that says you may never rent this unit, ever, even for 30 days or longer. Not just about short-term rentals, but also because this is intended to be secure housing for people that formerly were renters and were in insecure or expensive housing situations. So let's just get this right, because I think it's a really super good project.
Is there anyone else in the audience who cares to address this project? Sherry, is there anyone online?
Yes, one moment. There's one.
Hi, my name is Janine Walker, and I own property just below the project. I have for over 20 years. I'm a native of Ojai, and I would just like to confirm some of the comments that Mr. Trent gave, and some of the other speakers as well. It's well designed as presented. However, I'm really concerned about the incentive to use the parking on site and that those spaces either won't be used or they'll be used for some other purpose. I understand fire very well, having been in Ventura Thomas Fire and Ojai's fires. But if there's some sort of, as you said, some compromise with trees, you have designed a beautiful project. I'm glad that the palette is in keeping with the neighborhood. So I support the project and have supported Habitat for a really long time. But I also agree with Heidi that some of the details don't seem to be in place yet. So continue on. You're doing a great job. It's been my pleasure to listen to you tonight. But I didn't get notice as an owner for property on Montgomery for over 20 years. I didn't get notice until right before this March meeting. So I don't understand. I mean, I know this has been in the works for years, but you know, property owners don't get notice sooner. So I appreciate your efforts. Continue on. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Bill Miley is next.
Hello, you can hear me.
Yes.
I've been involved for some years with this parcel. Here are some conditions which I believe are in the contract, or if there aren't, there should be. The city owns and leases the property for maybe 99 years. Habitat grants the affordability will apply to all resales forever. Affordability is permanent, not 55 years. Habitat will oversee the property for maintenance in perpetuity. Owners of the unit will be encouraged to own and operate only one vehicle to match the one vehicle parking space. The stop sign will be installed at Franklin and Montgomery. No parking zones, red curbs will be expanded on Montgomery at Franklin on both sides. It seems to me that the issue of the city having land responsibility is brand new to me. It seems questionable and first time in Ojai. Knowing the cost is important. That's a huge responsibility, and with unknown funding responsibilities. Heidi Whitman's suggestion for each homeowner to have a small dues for land lease, I think is really important. One more important issue is that the number of units should be matched with the number of parking spaces on the site. With a very small lot, present numbers of parking spaces do not functionally fit the number of housing units, which are 5. At a functional ratio of 2 vehicles per unit, 5 housing units will generate 10 parking places, which it does not have. Franklin Street is 20 feet wide. There's no parking. Montgomery, in the evenings to early morning, is full of parked vehicles. To properly and equitably match parking units, and considering the no parking on Franklin, there should be only 4 housing units. It should be allowed, this will allow for more on-site unit parking and reduce congestion on Montgomery. The key item is the future of this neighborhood. 1 unit, only 1 unit will determine the future of this neighborhood. Plus is congested, minus is less congested. It will be determined the future of 14 or more houses on Franklin and many houses on North Montgomery. To approve 4 units, it seems important to go through the extra details of meeting the administrative requirements, which are the issues of incentives and waivers. To get this done is strictly bureaucratic administration, and that's all for the future of this larger neighborhood.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm 93, and it will be at least 93 years that they'll have to live through congested parking. Please don't do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay. If there are no other people online, Sherry?
That's right.
Okay, we will close the public hearing and turn the discussion back to the planning commissioners. Questions? Comments? Jonathan, sounds like you have one.
Yeah, well, I've just been, as new projects come through Ojai, I personally have a pretty strong feeling about trying not to have additional parking right on the street, but having it sort of, concealed to make the houses, the buildings, the kind of beautiful things, create our streetscape and the areas around it. And I know I remember the slide from last time. This is, one of many, many versions. It's kind of, obviously it's the first sort of time we're seeing what we saw a couple weeks ago, but more or less the first time we're seeing this version. And with seeing the track map also, I just feel like it would be really important I'd love to see a version where I'd love to see a real attempt at making these houses hold the street front and any additional parking other than whatever the street parking might be going behind. Now, this could potentially carve away from some of the nice kind of communal space that is created. So, that's obviously a pro and con to weigh, but this isn't a housing development. It's, individual houses, and the tract map kind of makes that clear. So I think, where the push and pull is there is a question for me. Whereas for having 3+ cars right there along Franklin, staring at those, having 3 cars more plus whatever's on the street front. Also taking away, Franklin's not a big deal because I think, as John's pointed out, there's not parking on the street there, but Montgomery, by having 3 spots there, you're making a curb cut, you're reducing the amount of street parking there as well. So I think that's my biggest, for me, this one of the biggest items that I feel is not, quite resolved yet on the design side.
Anyone else?
I think my only general, very high level comment is I think it's important to keep in mind this is housing for Ojai, not in Ojai. And that's a really simple distinction, but I'm particularly listening to the comment about veterans and the other elderly people who need the homes here. I just think that orientation at the community and council level is really important. This is for Ojai, not just located inside of Ojai.
Here we go.
Yeah.
I can see it in your eyes.
Well, I'm just repeating what I said last time. So maybe you can come up and show your slides because I have a feeling I know what they are. I feel like, the city's been involved 6 years in this project. It seems to me the Planning Commission should have seen this a long time ago, just to help the city council as the owner of the property get our view. So it seems kind of performative today. You know, it's almost a done deal. Everybody say it's been 6 years. The way the staff report is written, it seems like it's years at the city council level. It's got us to where we are, and I feel like we're supposed to just say, okay, it's great. It's Habitat for Humanity, and I do think the project is great. I like that it's 5 units, and if we could get more, great. So I like the 5 units, and I don't think 2 stories is a bad plan. I mean, I think it looks good. The architecture looks great. The single story looks great, but we have so many 2 stories in town, and the 2 stories can be designed very sensitively to the neighbors. And so because there's a parking issue, and we don't have infrastructure here we don't have public parking structures, we don't have large parking lots. I'm not sure if we want large parking lots, but we don't have accommodations for parking. So when you reduce parking on individual sites, it impacts the neighborhood. And this neighborhood's already impacted. So I think parking is a true consideration. And I know it was stated at the last meeting, we want to house people, not cars. Well, I agree with that. I think it's really important to house people, but the reality is people have cars. And I think the project can be designed in a way that can at least accommodate a couple more cars, underneath. If we do 2-story, sensitively designed, if there's any loss of open space, we could do balconies that are facing to the north and the west, not to the south or east where the residents, other existing residential units are. So my input is keep the 5 units. Let's try to maybe do a couple 2 stories in the back to accommodate parking somehow. I just haven't seen that. I can visualize it. I'm a very visual person. I can visualize it. And I think it can be done. So that's my input.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have Franklin, which could be the lower, density or height sort of street, because it's the smaller street, but you have Montgomery that, as you say, has several 2-story structures within like a block's radius. So it doesn't not match with the character of the area.
Yeah, and it's allowed in that zone, and we do want to promote more housing. So I think 5 is great, but let's not be afraid of going 2 stories. It's everywhere in town. We have a lot of 2 stories in town.
Okay. I have a couple questions. The veterans and seniors that were mentioned, and then it sort of said, it kind of devolved into whoever in Ojai lived or worked here. So are veterans and seniors being given a priority, or has that gone away?
I think that at least from the land lease standpoint and the affordable housing agreement standpoint, those pieces will be sorted out with those legal documents. There is also
Are you saying we don't know yet?
Well, hold on. I didn't finish my statement. There is an existing ordinance, which is a part of, I think, Assembly Bill 649, which we have built-in requirements for local preference. And that local preference can be then identified as those that are either working or already living or renting here. It can also put preferences in terms of status from the standpoint of a veteran or within those particular categories. So you can absolutely build that in. That is something that the council will be building in, but you can certainly identify that either as a recommendation moving forward or even have it as a condition of approval tied to your resolution.
I may be making an assumption here that I shouldn't, but it seems to me that seniors and veterans might be less likely to be 2-car families that would be here. I could be wrong.
And the stipulations regarding the number of, and I think this was talked about at the last meeting, in terms of the number of individuals living in these units, and then even the number of vehicles. That is completely within the wheelhouse of restrictions that can be applied to this.
Okay, I think that that would be a restriction that I would like to see. Because this land was labeled for affordable housing only, I'm assuming here that it's affordable forever, even past the 99-year?
Yeah, one of there's a deed restriction that identifies that it has to be identified.
It has to be forever.
Yeah, there's no restriction on number of years.
I am delighted that Habitat for Humanity is taking this project on. I think that they do great work, and the fact that they are able to supply us with housing for low and very low income is sorely needed, and I'm delighted that that's happening. When the last hearing occurred, the neighborhood was very adamant that they would prefer 4 dwelling units, and I agree. I think this looks a little packed. It is. It's a lot. 5 in 0.2 acres is a lot of structure. But now that I understand that there is a floor of 5 units so that they can have all of the conditions that are required, I guess I'm okay with the 5. Are there any other questions that you have about the project?
No, I think my final comment is I heard, the term that we would be giving people the first right of refusal in your presentation, and I, again, just under that, this is for Ojai, not located in Ojai. I think it has to be beyond that language. We have to clearly delineate the preference of who this is for. And that's my final comment. And in general, agree with, we need this, and I like this, and we're never going to get it perfect for everybody. But it does seem like there needs to be some work on red curbing and some pieces like that need to be worked out in the neighborhood for sure.
Is the request for a 3-way stop something that the city decides on? That's not a state highway or anything, so.
It is not. So council / the public works director has the authority to install those. So certainly, it's going to city council, so
Okay.
it'll be considered there.
So,
Yes.
okay, my recommendation to city council is to approve the stop sign for the safety of everybody in the area. Okay, I think that we've come to the point where I would entertain a motion and consider the restrictions in your motion. Conditions, yes. Lauren, did you?
And I don't know which commissioner provided a sketch, but if I could, or I received a sketch as part of public comment and did some additional study in terms of parking the vehicles off with a single line of access. If I can get that slide, Lucas, when you get it. And so there's quite a bit. Currently on Montgomery, I do want to point out there's an existing curb cut, which is not supposed to be parked, and that is an existing portion of our parking. So that's, I believe it's maybe, I don't want to exaggerate, so typical, I would assume 16 to 18 feet. So we're looking at those 3 compact spots getting to 24 for that new curb cut.
Right.
And I think it's the last one. Maybe. Nope. One more. There we go. Okay, so I was curious just to see what that sketch would look like. It was a real quick pencil sketch, and so I drafted it out. And so what you're seeing there is what would be required, 20-foot driveway entrance off of Montgomery, followed by 24-foot backup space behind each of those parking stalls to be able to navigate in and out, which equates to an additional 2,300 square feet of paving on the site. So it greatly increases the demand on the infiltration of the rest of the site. So I understand that the need for parking. I do want to share with you an affordable housing project that I was able to work on in the city of Ventura, where they redeveloped 180 of their units, nearly doubling the density. They, at the time, were going through, prior to all of this state housing law that we currently have, parked to city code, and these are multifamily family units. So it was arranged from 1 bedrooms, mostly 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms and 4 bedroom units, and currently leased up. They average about 0.87 vehicles per household. So, and that's the same demographic of income. Currently, the cost of car ownership is roughly about $10,000 a year. And when you think that these homes are going to sell somewhere in the neighborhood of $80,000, to assume 2 vehicle ownership is, it's a big burden on their income as well. So it is parked based on the state law, utilizing those 5 units with 1 space for each of the tiny homes or the 1 bedroom units, and 2 spaces allocated for the 2 bedroom home. So that was my study on the parking, and yeah, so you can see visually what it takes to be able to pull that parking off the street, and that's only parking those same spots that I provided previously with the 6 stalls. So increasing that, we would lose probably an additional unit, so we'd be down to 3.
Well, you could go 2-story, couldn't you?
The city has considered that, I believe.
Yeah, as a
and
part
rejected it.
of providing housing for seniors, I was originally looking at a loft option with the tiny homes and navigating that, but really to be able to allow these residents to age in place, a single story is really preferable.
You're saying you could have 4 lower floor units and 1 or 2 upper floor units, so you'd still be getting almost the same amount.
Yeah, I personally, I wouldn't want to reduce the number of housing units,
Right. Yeah.
but I mean.
It's different
I'm
than a
sure-
loft, I think, is what.
Yeah.
Is what
Yeah.
is the 2-story proposal.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And I think there's probably other ways to
always.
configure that.
But that's, yeah.
Yeah, but that's a,
thank you for
it's a
doing
good,
that.
yeah, it's a good
I-
Yeah.
Thank you.
way to see.
That was helpful.
A lot of parking.
Okay. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, the chair would entertain a motion.
Should be-
Hearing none, the chair will move to accept the, consider providing a recommendation, to recommend to the city council the proposed 5-unit, single-story, deed-restricted, 100% affordable housing project with the condition that we restrict the parking if that's possible. Is there a second?
Can you explain what you mean by restricting the parking?
having a restriction of 1 car per unit. That would give them 5 parking places and 1 for guests.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Is there discussion?
So do we feel ready? Do we feel ready to?
No, you can discuss away.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, is it like there's some questions? I mean, are there things we'd want them to go back and work on before we make this decision, or do we feel that it's ready to?
I guess the way I look at it is, you know, the city council's already been negotiating this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, so it kind of leapfrogged over us
Mm-hmm.
process-wise. I mean, it's not a terrible project.
No.
It's just not, I think we could have gotten so much more architecturally and, you know, from a site plan perspective. So I would be willing to approve the motion, but yes, I would be willing to approve the motion. However, if you wanted to amend the motion to recommend that the city council consider again possibly some other configurations with potentially 1 or 2 units, 2-story to accommodate 1 or 2 more parking spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be worthwhile because of the parking issue in that neighborhood. And I believe some of the units will have just 1 car, but not all, if there's multiple people.
But you're trying to require that there's only 1 only 1.
So yeah,
You're-
actually, that wouldn't be part
Right.
of your motion.
Can
I
we-
apologize, yeah, that wouldn't be
Can we
right.
even, is that in our power?
Sorry, repeat the statement?
Well, Chair Murphy is proposing that only that
The- the
ownership
on-
be,
The only condition would
Mhm.
be a restriction of 1 car per unit. So taking it back to 2 stories is kind of outside of this
Yeah,
motion.
right.
So,
Yeah, it is.
It would have to be a friendly amendment if you were to, in terms of the motion. Is there a second?
yes.
For this motion?
there
Okay.
is, no, just,
So
that's something we can require?
In terms of,
Because basically,
Yes,
in
you're
as
terms of the
property
restriction on
owner,
parking,
The
yes.
city council can require that.
You can provide that as a recommendation that goes
As a
forward to city council.
recommendation.
Yes.
Part of the
goes to the-
recommendation. Yeah.
to
You
the
know,
city council.
One
Part
of
of
the,
the negotiation.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, okay, no, that's all.
My read may be incorrect.
Join the group.
I'll say that from the beginning. I may not be the smartest guy in the room. But, you know, it seems there are enough laws around this, the density bonus law, you know, where they meet the parking requirements, the need for 5 units, where really I feel our focus should be traffic safety and who gets these houses. Those are really the 3 areas, it seems to me, that we can impact. And so that's why I like the motion as you stated it.
Okay. Is the traffic stop, the 3-way stop, part of the proposal already, or do we have to?
No, it's
add
part of the
that?
proposal because it's
It is.
identified on the
So
site plan. Yes.
Okay, so we're covered there.
Who pays for the stop sign?
That is a question for council.
Okay. Yeah, I do think it's worth noting, we are, you know, the city and the taxpayers are taking on expense and logistics and people and operating procedures and so on. And I'd feel very unclear on all of that, you know, the additional cost.
So in terms of the motion and the second, you had identified 1 car per unit, and that includes the single-family home with the 2 bedrooms? Yes? Okay.
Well, they've supplied enough for
They
that
have-
one to have 2 cars.
Yeah.
There's 6 spots, and there's
There are
5
6
units.
spots. So
The math
I
good.
could amend my own motion to say 2 spots for the
Or a spot per bedroom.
single dwelling and single, restricting only the 4 double units.
So you're talking about the
Give me a
2
name.
buildings, which include the 4
Yeah,
tiny houses, right?
yeah. The tiny houses should be restricted to 1 car.
Okay.
Does that cover it?
Yes, that would
Yeah,
cover
the
it.
density bonus law, because I read it relative to this project, says you have to have 6 spaces. So we're in that with your motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this? Questions?
No, I mean, it's-
Now or forever hold your peace.
absolutely. It sounds like they have a lot more work to do, but no, I mean, I also think it's a great project, so we want to see it go forward, you know. And I think that having, I mean, to the point of keeping it 5, I think there is a logic to more density near downtown that also can create less driving because there's more walking and fewer need for people to be driving in to utilize services that are in town. So.
I feel like in the 6 years, the city has answered most of the questions that Habitat had, and that there are a few little areas maybe that will wind up needing clarification, but that at this point, my feeling is that we want to go ahead and give the city council the recommendation to proceed.
And leave it up
So,
to them to
and
figure
leave
out
it
some of those
if there
details.
are, yeah.
Who can be in there, et
I
cetera,
don't want
et
to be a pediment to the project at this point.
Yeah, I think there's a spirit, a little bit of a test and learn here. You know, we've never really done anything like this, it appears, as a city. We're probably not going to get everything right out of the gate, and if we work for perfection, we will be here another 15 years.
Yes.
And so I think there's also, in the spirit of what you're saying, let's get something going. Start logging the lessons learned around everything we can with this project, so that when the next one comes to the table, we're a better informed group of people, a better informed community, and we, you know, continue to improve in that regard.
Okay, then I think we're ready for roll call, Sherry.
Stewart,
Aye.
Rice Schmidt,
Aye.
Chesley,
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye. Well, now we go forward to the city council with this habitat. Good luck. Welcome to the city.
It's good.
Okay. We are, did you want to break, anybody? Or are you okay? We don't have a lot left. Okay. Okay, we'll keep going. Okay, then we are moving on to where are we? Let's see. Informational items.
Is there an
Future
informational item?
agenda items.
Future agenda, thank you. I was like, what's the informational? Future agenda items. So for March 18th, it's looking like we have 2 items on the agenda. So I'm not asking for a cancellation. Instead, I'm looking for just giving you information. It's a concept review for what's referred to as the City Hall Master Plan. And if anybody's been following City Council, there's been a couple of presentations regarding this already. Presentations. This is a concept review. As concept reviews go, it's an opportunity to get, for this body, to provide feedback. No decision is being made. So it's a wonderful, this is really the kind of the breadbasket of this commission. So
Okay.
just expect that. I think we'll be ready for the 18th to present. And so will the applicant.
One item on the agenda?
So the other item is training, and all it says is training, and it has the staff assigned as the attorney. So I believe this is Brown Act training is what you're going to see here. So bring your hat and be ready to be educated in
Okay,
the process. All right?
sounds good. Director's report, do you have anything further?
I think I've said enough tonight. I'm all done talking.
Commission member report, I went over to the MAC meeting as it was my month, and there was no one there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, anyway, turned around and went home. City council liaison. Mr. Mayor.
Nothing to report, but this is very exciting and it's great to be a part of it. I don't have anything. I said it all last time. Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, in that case, the planning commission meeting is adjourned at 8:45.
Could be worse.